días, buenas tardes o buenas noches, según donde cada uno esté. Bienvenidos a la presentación del último libro, la última novela de Claire Keegan, Cosas, pequeñas como esas, traducido por Jorge Fondebrider, publicado recientemente por Eterna Cadencia Editora, y en nombre de Eterna Cadencia les doy las gracias de nuevo por acompañarnos. Seguramente todos ustedes conocen a Claire Keegan. Claire es una de las escritoras jóvenes irlandesas más talentosas, me parece, en este momento, con una escritura sumamente contundente, emocionante, precisa y emotiva a la vez. Claire ha publicado 3 libros antes: Recorre los campos azules, Antártida y 3 luces, los 3 traducidos también por Jorge Fondebrider y publicados en Eterna Cadencia Editora, y ha recibido numerosos premios, como por ejemplo el William Trevor Prize o el Ronnie Prize for Irish Literature. Para acompañarla en esta presentación a Claire Keegan, contamos con nuestra querida Inés Garland, escritora y traductora. Ella ha traducido, por ejemplo, a Lydia Davis y a Sharon Oates. Es escritora de muchísimos libros, por ejemplo, de Piedra, Papel o Tijera, El jefe de la manada o Una vida más verdadera, y ha ganado también muchísimos premios. Muchas gracias, Inés, por acompañarnos hoy, y por supuesto muchas gracias, Claire, por acompañarnos. Thank you very much, Claire. Y quiero agradecer, antes de despedirme, al Instituto de Literatura Irlandesa, que permanentemente nos ha apoyado en la traducción y difusión de cada uno de los libros de Keegan. Bueno, de vuelta, gracias a todos los que están del otro lado, ojalá en muchísimos países, y los dejo con Claire y con Inés. Gracias.
So now it's just us. So hello, Claire. Thank you for being here. I was so much looking forward to this conversation with you, this interview. I was waiting for a new book. We were all waiting for a new book. So it's a big moment here to have another of your wonderful books.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I was wondering, how would you, when did the first strings started pulling, the first strings of this particular novel started pulling at you, if we could say it that way?
A long time ago, I was writer in residence at University College Cork at the time, and it was when the Ferns report came out. I was coming back to Wexford for the weekend, and I stopped somewhere to get a breakfast on the road, and I took out the Irish Times, and there was a 2-page spread on, it was a Saturday, and there was a 2-page spread on the Ferns report here in Ireland. And so I read something in that which put this story in mind to me, and it has been rolling around the back of my mind ever since. And I finally wrote it over lockdown.
Oh, yes. Oh, I see. It's amazing because the Magdalene Laundries had been there for a long time, but it's like in the last years, all these things have started to be really on the front pages, all the atrocities of the Catholic Church. And
yes,
the way you decided to tell this story is so deeply compelling and moving and poignant, because you chose a very particular point of view also. So how did that come along? How was it that you decided to tell the story from Bill Furlong's point of view?
I'm not sure really. I don't know that I make very deliberate decisions when I'm writing. I'm more inclined to make discoveries which seem to fit in with something I need to find out or need to say. So I've never plotted anything. For example, I don't actually believe in plot as far as my own work is concerned. and I would never know very much about what's to come in anything I would be writing, which is part of the reason, or one of the reasons why it takes me so long to finish something. Perhaps it's not a very efficient way of working, but I don't really know any other way to write. I'm sure there are easier or faster ways of writing, but I haven't discovered any which work for me. And with regard to Bill Furlong, he was somebody who interested me, and I just stumbled across him along the way.
He's a wonderful character, and the questions he poses are so necessary, I think. I'm very fond of Natalia Ginsburg, an Italian writer that probably you know, but she has an essay that says that we have turned, it's a 70s essay, but I find it very, very up to date. And she says that she was fond of the image of a man sitting on the armchair reading the newspaper while the woman did the cleaning, and that the wife was doing the dishes, that she was brought up with this image of a man, and that she was she was fond of this image of the provider, the man doing the work and the woman being in the house, and that she had found out that in the late years, that she meant the 70s, men had been turned into ghosts or monsters, and that she no longer recognized what they were, and that they had that now. And she poses a question which came back to me when I was reading your novel, which is, whose responsibility is it to imagine men that are not monsters or ghosts? And I thought that is exactly what you did. You thought of a man that is different to a monster or a ghost, and gives a very interesting way of looking at that possibility. And I think that it was very necessary nowadays. And yes,
I don't know that I've ever regarded men as monsters or ghosts.
No, you obviously haven't. What she meant, the society, she meant what was going on in society. And I think that is probably something that nowadays is quite there.
Well, I would still have to go back to what you're asking me about in response to her saying that. And
yes.
And I just haven't ever imagined men in that way as monsters or ghosts. I see, the misogyny in Ireland and the misogyny in the Catholic Church as brutalizing men more than anything else.
Of course.
Of taking away what was possible and the affection between men and women, yes. and turning sex into something you took from a woman. John McGahern, the wonderful Irish writer, he said in one of his essays that in Ireland it was more acceptable to hit someone than to kiss them in public.
Yes.
And that says a great deal to me. That spoke to me when I read that. I thought that that's what the Catholic Church had done to us. They had demeaned our affections to such an extent that it wasn't actually right to show it. So I think that is neither ghostly nor monstrous. I see it as terribly brutalizing, and very sad.
Absolutely.
More than anything. And it's one of the things I notice, when I go to Argentina or Spain or France, and how affectionate people are naturally, and how normal that is in your society. And it still isn't normal here.
Yes, however, what you're mentioning, the fact of how the Catholic Church turned brutalized men, and how they manage to separate sex from love and to make it something dirty and that it's more natural to hit than to love. I think that is probably worldwide, even though we can be more affectionate. This problem is at the core of the relationship of men and women, I think, all over the world, or between human beings also, because some of the things you say in the novel could also apply to immigrants, or to the fact that we separate ourselves from the others. And the fact I had this feeling that you were also addressing very deeply the problem of belonging or not belonging, or my kids, my daughter, my children have these rights that other children don't have, and that is natural. I think that you address all these questions in such a beautiful and very, I don't know, very intelligent, very subtle way, and also very to the core. Bill Furlong's reflections take you there to all these things that are human. What is our position in the world? And also there's this thing about the Catholic Church, that what would you say, what the Catholic Church says, which is the Christian thing to say, let's say, is right in a way. What is wrong is what they did with that. And this appears in the novel a lot also. So
yes,
I know
that's the strange thing. He's actually deeply Christian.
Yes, he's very, very deeply Christian, and that I loved about him, because he's the way he look, and also he has all this fight within himself, between doing something or not doing something when you see something going on. And I wondered, how was that journey for you also? Because while you write, you have to be there and you have to do that journey too.
Oh, I'm always pleased when I'm working. I've done a lot of teaching in the past 20 years or more. And as soon as I'm in and I have found some kind of some tension in a piece of prose, I'm not squeamish over where it takes me. I don't think you can be squeamish over human nature if you want to write fiction, because it seems to me that fiction, or the type of fiction I'm drawn to, is about human loss.
Yes, absolutely.
And so in order to write well, I think you need to listen to and follow that, and follow it closely, and try to thoroughly imagine it. And it'll probably lead you into somewhere you may not naturally be inclined to go or to follow.
Of course.
But at the same time, I'm always pleased when I'm working. Not working is harder than working.
I know. Yes, it's very hard not to be working. And then the another character that I found very interesting is Eileen, because even though she's on the side somehow, she's there, and she's a woman, and I thought she was quite tough, in a way. And the conversations in the bedroom reminded me of an interview that I had heard you say, that you wanted to have Kinsella from Foster talking in bed with his wife about the girl, but you couldn't do that because, of course, Foster is told from the point of view of the girl, so she couldn't know they were talking about her. And yet this image comes back in this novel, and I enjoyed that a lot, that you were able to have that image of this married couple talking in the dark about their daughters, the fact that they have 5 daughters and they're talking about them. And in that conversation, and in several other places in the novel, she comes as harder than him. And that also,
I think she is. Sorry to interrupt. I think she is harder than him.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women became more practical than their husbands, and harsher and harder, and all of that attitude in that society produced different types of hardnesses in people of both genders. by necessity.
Yes.
I'm a friend of mine, Loretta, read it, and in an earlier draft, and I asked her what she thought of Eileen, and she said a wonderful thing to me. She said, "I think Eileen is ordinary."
Oh, how
And
wonderful.
I don't know how that translates for you.
Oh, yes, it does.
But here to say somebody is ordinary is an insult.
I know.
It doesn't mean that they're average or they're normal. It actually means that they are unexceptional.
Yes.
And I found that really interesting, because as soon as she said it, I knew it was true. But it was also right for her, because that is what she would become in that society, with that amount of responsibility and 5 children and a man that she knows she has to keep in line, or he might go off the track. That is probably what she would become and what she became. And we like to think we are exceptional, but there are all so many types, really. We probably fall into one of them, even though we don't like to think of that.
Oh no, of course not. But yes, we do. And then because he is extraordinary also, and his circumstances are quite extraordinary also. The way he was raised, his mother, Mrs. Wilson, that's not that ordinary either. So he's given also a way, or a door to being extraordinary. Of course, that not necessarily happens. We can be raised in extraordinary situations and be quite ordinary. But he has this. I thought that something he says also stayed with me, that is to stay on the right side of people, which has so many ways to. You can read that in so many ways in the novel, because I bet all those people, the nuns and the Mrs. Kehoe at the tavern, they probably think they are on the right side of people too, which is very interesting. No? I was trying to find something that this that he wonders at some stage. Furlong says, "What would life be like," he wondered, "if they were given time to think and reflect over things? Might their lives be different or much the same, or would they just lose the run of themselves?" And this is very, very interesting that he thinks that reflecting would take you to lose the run of yourself, no?
I'm terribly pleased that you chose that passage.
Really?
Because for me, yes, it pleases me an awful lot that you chose that passage, because to me it was the key of what happened subsequently. Because when he goes into the barbers, he's a man who I think can't sit still and can't relax. He needs to be on the go all of the time. And he could sit in the office at the coal merchants, and not be going out on the lorry, but he's got to be on the move. And when you say that, he wonders what life would be like if they were given time to pause and reflect over things, and if they lose the run of themselves, I actually think that's what happens to him on Christmas Eve. I think there is no big rush home. The coal yard has closed down for the Christmas holidays. He doesn't really have to go anywhere until he goes to midnight mass. Yeah. And I think it's about 4:00. It's just getting dark when he comes out after having bought Christmas lunch for all the men. So I actually think that's what happens to him.
Yes, but
he actually loses the run of himself.
Yes, but it's funny to think that reflection would take you there. It's a very funny, it's a very weird thought, and at the same time, it's wonderful. I think that is exactly what terrifies many people when they start reflecting, that they're going to lose the run of themselves. They're just going, havoc will break loose, and in fact, I think it does in a way. When you reflect about things, many times havoc break loose. You just,
yes, it usually takes you somewhere, and it's not always an easy place.
No, that is wonderful. Well, I also wanted to, because I would talk about the novel like 3 hours. I would love to ask you so many things, but of course I forgot to look at the clock, so I don't know. But I'm aware that time is running, and I wondered why you chose to tell the story in this particular small town in Ireland. I know not. And in the year 85, was that a deliberate decision that came after you had written a while, or how did that happen?
No, I actually said it earlier to begin with.
Okay.
And then I decided on the 80s, because the 80s in Ireland was a very dark time, and I didn't mention it in the novel because I didn't want to go into it. But there was a teenager here, a young woman named Anne Lovett, who was in secondary school, and she actually died giving birth to her baby in a field beside a grotto. And that happened when I was at school, and I'll just always remember that. It was just an awful thing, an awful fact of the 80s. And she had actually brought scissors to school with her and cut the child's umbilical cord herself after giving birth on her own on the way home from school, and she and the baby died. And so that, that was part of the 80s, and it was still legal at that time in Ireland to rape your wife. So if you married, you gave your husband the right to rape you. I think that changed in 91, not until 91. It was just a time when there was so much unemployment. I came back from doing my undergraduate studies in 92, and I think we had the highest unemployment in Europe at that time, and a huge suicide rate in the county I went back to, which was County Carlow, and most of that was the suicides of young men. So to me, it was a really dark time, and there was a great deal of hopelessness and despair, and the hand of the Catholic Church not being at all gentle, and huge misogyny, and people really not knowing what to do or where to go, and men and women being lost, and young men and women leaving school and really not knowing what to do. And not having a sex education, not even knowing very much about contraception, and just assuming you went off and got married and had children and didn't even think twice about it. And so I felt that was the time to set it in, and to set it earlier. To go back another 20 or 30 years also would have suggested that the time of the Magdalene laundries and that type of thinking was of an earlier time, whereas in fact it wasn't. It was very much of the 80s, and we didn't even know there were Magdalene laundries. I had never heard or known of a Magdalene laundry, but this isn't the story of the Magdalene laundries. This is, for me, the story of a man with 5 daughters who may in fact be self-destructive.
Yes. I also love the conversation he has with the Mother Superior when, I'm the eldest of 5 daughters. So this question,
lovely.
Yeah, the question the Mother Superior makes to Bill Furlong is a question I've heard a million times asked to my own father, which is, I'm going to read for the sake of the viewers. The Mother Superior asks him if it has been disappointing to have 5 girls. And he says, disappointing in what way? To have no boy to carry on the name. But he was now on known ground. He has been asked this many times, and he said, sure, didn't I take my own mother's name, Mother? And never any harm did to me. Is that so? She asks, and she says, What have I against girls? He went on. My own mother was a girl once, and I dare say the same must be true of you and half of all belonging to us. I think that is, I wish I had this to give it to my father and say, now do answer this and stop saying other things like, oh yes, I know, my last name will not last. Oh, it is such a wonderful answer.
I think it's only a wonderful answer because he has been asked it many times, because people know him to have, you know, that his mother wasn't married. So it's just that he's ready for it. It wasn't on the tip of his tongue naturally. I think he's come a long way to find himself being so fluent as that.
Yeah, he's wonderful. It's wonderful the way this man has been made to come real. I would love to meet him. I really think he's extraordinary. He's a beautiful man, and I thank you for him. And all the things he says I think it made me think about a lot about also about what my position is in the world in regard to many things, like what I told you about wanting to belong, and at the same time how belonging also means acquiescing to things sometimes, and how that must be put into perspective, and all this that you say of going to the uncomfortable places. I think.
And belonging to what, you know, what, and also what really will happen to us if we don't play along or say the things or do the things expected of us. I don't know. It seems to me that what's at the heart of every good life is some form of bravery, and that might be just being quiet or saying nothing or not acquiescing.
Yes.
Or sometimes not resisting.
Yeah.
It's hard to know, but it seems to me that being brave has something to do with having a good life, having a decent life.
Absolutely. But also I think that is something, that's one of the reasons I read for. I mean, I read because I find that the people that have gone to uncomfortable places and have had a life that I can dream of having, and I am having, in fact, going to those places, you know. And literature, from the very beginning, the books opened that door for me.
Yes, I feel that it can take us beyond. I mean, I felt the same about books and reading, and I felt that it could take you beyond your own limitations and to deepen your understanding and imagination of what it meant to be somebody else, yes. Which I suppose is what civilization is, isn't it? To imagine the life of another.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to continue on doing that. So yes, it's just lovely to have that privilege and the riches of reading. Yes,
and then another thing I thought reading the novel, and this came in the second reading, no, the fact that love is also a privilege, and it's very clear in this novel, and it was great to feel that.
What a lovely thing to say. Thank you so much.
You said it.
I think that's one of the loveliest compliments I've ever been paid about anything I've written. What a lovely thing to say. Thank you.
I'm afraid you said it, Claire. It was your saying in the novel.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that.
Yes, it's there. It's all over the novel. It's there. I promise you, it's there. It's beautiful, and I thank you for that. So, well, of course, I would like to talk about what you teach your students and all that, but I think it's about time we say goodbye. And this is it has been wonderful to talk to you again.
And thank you so much for taking the time to read my work and to talk to me today.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Come back, come visit us soon, please.
Thank you, I will.
Yes.
I would love to.
Okay, bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, bye-bye.